Welcome to verifiedinvesting.com. My name is Benjamin Poole, head trader here at Verified Investing. In this video, I'm going to cover stocks. I'm actually going to cover 4 of the Mag 7 stocks that have either key support and or resistance levels. Let's go ahead and dive in the charts. The first one I'm going to cover with you guys is Meta. I have a couple different trend lines that I'm monitoring. First off is this high pivot point right here. Here's the first hit, second hit, third hit, and see how all of this price consolidation was either support or resistance levels when it got into this area. Then we draw this line all the way out, and as you can see, we are now below this previous support level, and so this is going to act as resistance. Now let's draw your attention to this upsloping trend line. Connect this low pivot low right here, secondary hit here. And this corresponds with this third hit of not only this previous pivot top and all this price consolidation, but this is the third hit of this upsloping trend line. And see what happened is price actually got below this upsloping trend line. So what I'm looking for is price to continue either to the downside and take out this low pivot right here at about $519.90, or a retrace back inside of this upsloping trend line. If we can get price action above this upsloping trend line, as well as above all of this resistance level or current resistance level, then the bulls are going to jump back on board and is likely to push this price all the way back up to about $581.60 on the price action of Meta. Once this level breaks right here to the downside, if that happens, again, that level would be about $520 break, which would be a close below this low pivot. Then on the chart of Meta on a technical basis, you're coming back into all of these pivot low areas here, as well as this previous spot where it connected this upsloping trend line sitting at $479.94. So this is where I'm eyeing Meta for a continued drop, unless we can start pushing back above this resistance levels, and then I'm expecting a bounce to the upside. Netflix is the next stock we're going to cover. Netflix had this nice bounce. It did have some negative news when it was trying to buy out WDC, Warner Brothers Discovery. And then all of a sudden it got pulled out of that bid. And then all of a sudden the price action shot up to the upside. It actually capped out around $100. Let's go ahead and jump back into this chart of Netflix. So here's basically your line in the sand. You have this nice down move with this downsloping trend line. We got above it and now off to races. We went getting resistance at this gap in the charts. So what I'd like to see is this flagpole. So what I'm looking at is this nice bid to the upside, sideways to lower consolidation. So if we can get back up to this $100.28 level on the chart of Netflix, then you're likely to break through it. And the reason I say you're likely to break through it is because once the resistance level is hit on multiple occasions, it more favors a move to the upside. And so that's what I'm eyeing on the chart of Netflix, is it to get back up to $100.28, get a little bit of a rejection, hit it again. And then all of a sudden, once we break out, I'm not necessarily going long. What I would do is similar to what's going on with Meta. I wouldn't necessarily play it on a long play until we get a confirmation or a continuation move above it, and then a retrace back to the scene of the crime where resistance level would then become support. Now, let's say that Netflix decides it wants to play out to the downside with the rest of the markets. This is actually going counter to a lot of the rest of the market. So I do think that Netflix favors a continued move up. However, we've always got to be contrarian. If it does flush in, you're going to have this first gap in the chart sitting about $84.47. That's going to be your primary level of support. Once you get below that, you have these pivot lows right here, as well as this opening candle of the green bar candle at $79.40. Then your next level of support is going to be right here at $75.39. For me to be interested in getting back into this trade for a swing trade, I would actually be eyeing these pivot tops right here. So you've got this, as you can see, previous resistance levels on the chart of Netflix, got above it, then got rejected again. Then once all of a sudden we got back above it, retraces seeing the crime after a confirmation. This was our entry price. And then all of a sudden we had this huge surge to the upside. Look at that move. You had a 94% move to the upside, which means that once price action does get back into this level at $68.98, that is a swing trade long play for me. And that would just be a retrace to the scene of the crime of the breakout. So again, a couple different levels we're watching. If Netflix decides it wants to push up, this is going to be your line in the sand resistance. On the downside, this for me, I'd mentioned you do have some support levels on the way down, but for me, I would be definitely playing this for a long play at $68.98. Microsoft is another chart that we're monitoring. So every once in a while, you're going to get outliers in the charts. So I'm going to connect this pivot top right here, and then price consolidated right in this area. And you see how price then got rejected again on this downsloping trend line. Some people do like to draw it from pivots, but what I like to do is I like to actually take what happened with the price action and draw where a potential trend line is. The idea behind a trend line isn't necessarily to pinpoint a precise entry point or exit point. It's to give you an idea of the direction of the market. That's what a downsloping trend line is. It is a line that is capping the trend either on the upside or downside. And so that's why we like to take previous price action as it unfolds in the markets or in a particular stock. So here's the downsloping trend line for me on Microsoft. Every time it's gotten a bid up to this downsloping trend line, it's gotten a rejection. Again, a couple different outliers, one right here and the second one right here, but you can see this previous support level right in this area at $488.94 was resistance, got rejected, and now we're continuing this trend down. For me, what I'm looking at is this $366.82 level. If you zoom out in the charts, this is a gap that has been filled, did get a rejection below that, hasn't necessarily confirmed below it, and now we're trying to retrace. So this is where the bears need to either continue their push to the downside or get out of the way to let the bulls drive this all the way to this downsloping trend line. Again, if we can recapture $366.82, then I think that Microsoft does have a nice push or a nice bid to the upside. However, because we've broken down and we've closed below, $344.71 is where I'm looking to pick up Microsoft for a long play. If you zoom out in the charts, you see this previous price action that happened, as well as this price action, and then you had this low pivot on the lows from the tariff news. This is a major pivot in the charts on the chart of Microsoft. So $344.71 is where I'd be looking to get into this trade for a long trade. This is a downsloping trend line on Microsoft. So similar to what's going on with Meta, you need to break above it, a continuation move, and then you could play it for a retrace as a scene of the crime. Even if you're picking this up for a little bit higher of a price, that is the way pro traders like to trade it, just so that way they can make sure that the trend has gone away. It is no longer in a downtrend, and that way you would confirm that would be a retrace of the scene of the crime after a breakout with confirmation. So again, 344.71 is where I'm looking at to pick this up for a long play. Doesn't mean that it can't go down to 305.96. As you can see, if I zoom out in the charts, here was previous pivot tops, a lot of price consolidation in this area, as well as this price consolidation right at the highs or the mid part of 2023. So 305.86, if we do fail, the $344 level would be additional add level for me on Microsoft. Ton of support in this area on this chart. Now, Nvidia, I would like to draw your attention to the shoulder, head here, and a shoulder here. So what we have now is a head and shoulders pattern. So if we take a trend line, take it from these low pivots through here, this gives us an idea of where the head and shoulders pattern is. I'm actually going to remove some of these lines for you to give you a clearer picture of this head and shoulders pattern. So shoulder, head, shoulder. If this Nvidia chart plays out to target, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the top part or the apex of the head all the way down to the neckline. And wherever this breaks, you're going to take that exact same measurement right here. Nvidia could head all the way down to $130 on the charts on a technical basis. As you can see, this aligns with not only previous pivot tops, but previous pivot lows. And so you can see that at about $130, you're going to have a ton of support. On the downside, before that happens, if you notice $152.90, this was a previous all-time high. Here was a secondary hit. Once we got above it, we did retrace the scene of the crime. So this gives us an idea of where this chart pattern will likely repeat itself. And that would be at $152.90. And you could be looking for about a 10 to 15% bounce off of this. And then you could even wait, if you're a little bit more patient, could wait for the retrace to the neckline if we can pick this up at $152.90. Once that level does break, though, it's likely to play out to this measured move, and you're looking at Nvidia about $130. So that's what I have for you guys. Thank you so much for watching. Again, my name is Benjamin Poole, head trader at Verified Investing, and thanks for watching verifiedinvesting.com. You guys have a great rest of your day, and take care.